CIST 2510, Chapter 4, we're looking at working with code. When we create new code, we go to File and New, and we will create a new HTML code. You'll notice that Dreamweaver will automatically create your basic format for your code. So it's going to put your HTML tags in, it's going to create your head, your body sections, and your title section. With this, we can go ahead and start putting in code and create our HTML code. You can write your code in manually if you want, but Dreamweaver also allows you to use code hints and autocompletes for codes. So for example, in the body tag, if we were going to create a div. So as we start typing, you'll see that we have a drop box that comes up that allows us to scroll through available code that we can add into Dreamweaver. When we use our keys, so if I type in D, it's going to jump to the Ds. I can choose div, and that's going to place a div in. So once I've done with this, I'm going to hit enter. So now I've got this div code inserted. I just hit enter to insert another line. I don't like my open and close tags being on the same line. It's a personal preference. One thing I can do though is I can go ahead and start typing in. So if I type in ID and hit enter, you'll see that it's placing the format for my IDs. So in here, I'm going to name this one wrapper. Hit the right arrow key. I'm going to close the tab. So when I close that, you'll see that I do have the closing tag. So I'm going to hit enter, go ahead and move that to the next line. Now I want to make sure that I save this. So I'm going to save this into as my first page.html. And I'm going to save this into my chapter 4 folder, which actually already have. So I'm going to go in and save as, and I'm going to save this in my chapter 4 lesson folder. Okay, so that'll be the folder that you guys will zip up and submit at the end of this chapter. Now, a couple other things I can do is I can create this, for example, my nav tags. So inside of this, I'm going to move this down, give me some room to work with. So I can just type in the word nav and hit the tab key. You'll see that it puts my open and closing tabs in. So my tags are in for my nav and my closing tag for nav. So I'm going to move this down. Now in this, I can also start creating my ordered list. Your navigation tags are going to have an unordered list and then list items for this one. So in here, I can type in UL, and in this, I want to say that my list item is a child element. So by placing this and hitting tab, you'll see now I've created my unordered list and it's added one list item. But I can do this to where I can add more than just one at a time. So by typing the unordered list and telling it I have a child item, and I have a child item times 5. And when I hit tab, you'll see that it's created 5 of the list items. Now I can go into further than this. So I know that in each one of these list items, I'm going to have another child element that's going to have the anchor tag. So in here, I'm also going to have a link that's going to be created in each one of these. And I want to have a wildcard in there. So a variable. So by typing in this and hitting my tab key, you'll see now that I have created a link that's got the anchor tag set up for the reference, and it all has the name of link 1, link 2, link 3, and so forth. That was added by adding the variable character. You notice on my live page that it is now has that as well. And then I can clean up my spaces as needed here as well. So I can also do this with other tags. So I'll type in header. I now have my opening and closing header tag. If I need to create two elements, so say I want to create the text in your book with creating an H2 tag with favorite city tour and a paragraph tag that says travel with a purpose. So I'm going to place this in here and hit tab. You see now I have the travel with a purpose and the favorite city tour. Now these are things I can also do with other options. I can build multifaceted parent-child structures and so forth as well throughout this. Another thing I can do is I can come down and create a footer, type in the information in, I hit tab. You see it creates a footer, close and open tab, and then puts my contact information or my information in there. Now I can also use a multi cursor support with Dreamweaver. Okay, so if I wanted to add the pound symbol, the hashtag, into each link, I can do this by going into each link and clicking. I can also hold down my Alt key and drag straight down. Now this doesn't work if I go over and select the text. So in this case, I'm dragging the multi-line cursor, and then I can place in a symbol on multiple lines. So now that's been placed on multiple lines. I can also use the control key if I'm wanting to place something on non-consecutive lines. So for example, if I want to add a class to my text, let's move this down. So if I wanted to add a class to, we're going to make copies of this just for demonstration purposes. And we're going to change this to an H1 tag. If I want to add a class to this, I can do this on multiple lines. So I can put my cursor in, I can hold down my control key, and I can select non-consecutive lines. And then I can start typing in my text. So this is what I can quickly apply. For example, here is adding different class or a class to multiple areas at the same time. Also, if I want to comment my code. So for example, in here, if I wanted to let's say I had the text of so we have a text of customer testimonials, and I want to add a comment saying that this is where customer testimonials will be inserted. I can come over to my apply comment. I can apply HTML comment, and this is going to format this for me. So you see that it's got the area here. So when I put my text in, this now read as a comment. It's not going to be read and rendered by my browser. It's just going to be something that can be read in my code. Comments are there to allow you to know what's going on in that section of code. If you're developing a website for a business and you're not going to be containing the maintenance of that business website, somebody else that comes along next will look at that and be able to read what's going on in that code. All right, so we can also enable a preprocessor. So I'm going to come into Manage Sites, and I've got a lesson 4 site already set up. If you have not set up your site, this is something that you should do so that you have this site set up for each lesson. So I can come in to edit this, and here I can set up my site. If I come down to the CSS preprocessors, so in here I have a couple options. So if I go to the general category, this is where I can choose different option types here. So I can enable for the auto completion on file save. So this one I'm going to make sure it's checked. I do have some options here for the less or the SAS or SCSS options. With this selected, Dreamweaver is automatically going to compile my CSS from whatever I have in my less, SAS, or the SCSS. So I'm going to choose now the source and output. This is going to let me choose where the source folder is and the output folder is for my CSS. So in this, I'm going to choose my output folder, and I want to make sure that this is going to the correct folder, so it's going to my CSS for that lesson. In the source folder, I'm going to click the arrow, and I'm going to make sure that I choose this SAS folder. Then I'm going to click Save, and I'm going to click Done. Now, from in here, I am now going to create a SAS that can be applied to this web page. So in here, I'm going to choose a new document, and I'm going to choose the SCSS. We'll do that one. I'm going to click Create. Now I have what in your instructions is telling you to say this is favorite styles dot SCSS, and we're going to save that into that folder. So I'm going to paste that in and save it. So now we'll see that in our files. You'll notice in our file structure that's been updated now. We don't have to create this CSS. You see it's been created based off what we have here. So now we're going to start typing in our codes we're going to be using. So this is for our color of our themes for our colors. So we're going to copy in the logo yellow. And I'm just going to copy and paste the rest of the code that's given to you in your text. So in this, we're developing this and we're saying this is the colors we will use. This is our font stack. So we're going to use this font first. If that font's not available, we'll use the second font and then finally the third font family, or fourth and then the font family. So I'm going to create a new line here. All right, so now we're going to start typing in our body, or open bracket. So in here, we're going to type in our shorthand. So this is going to be our font family, and we're going to tell it font stack. We'll hit tab, and you see it has placed the code in. So we'll do the next one, type in C, press tab. This is going to place our color. This is the default color, so we're going to leave this as it is. So we're going to type in our margins. We're going to set those to 0 and press tab. So this is all shorthand that you can use. So we're naming the, for example, the color, we're saying our shorthand is C, use the tab, and it's going to place the color in. We can change these values as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. So it is saved. Now we're going to look at our files here. So we do have our CSS that's here. We also have our base SCSS and our favorite styles SCSS as well. Now, going back to our page here, we're going to now link this into our head section. So after the title, I'm going to type in link, and I'm going to hit tab. You see, it does create a link that we can format to creating that or linking that external style sheet that we talked about in chapter 3. So now we have our relationship as a style sheet and our link, our href. So in here, we're going to now start saying that we're going to link this to the CSS folder. You'll see that we do have the file that's in there. So that is now linked in to our page. So let's take a look at what is actually in our CSS. So in our CSS, we'll see that we have the bodies, the family, the font family, color, and the margins have been set. So let's change the color on this. And this is something we can look in our CSS designer to see what our color with this would be. So this is everything that's included in our body. In here we can change the text color. So if we wanted to change this to, say, red, so we now have changed that. We look at our CSS, we'll see that it's going to be updated as well. Okay, so we can also change this back here as well. You'll notice that it is changed back on our web page. Now, another thing we can do is we can nest our CSS selectors. So when we're going back to our favorite styles, the SCSS. So we're going to go down to, after the body rule, we're going to create another body or another selector. So we'll do a nav. We'll put the open in bracket and hit enter. So in here, we're going to change our background logo, yellow, tab. So this should apply the color of ED6 to the nav element. We'll put the TAC, which is going to put our text aligned at center. Put our overflow set to auto. And now we're going to save this file. And we look back at our first page, we'll see now that we have applied this. This has been changed. Once again, this is updating our CSS as well. And we can go back to this and we can change more options here as well. So now we're going to look at doing the UL element. Then we're going to tell it the list style is going to be set to none, and our margins is going to be set to 5 pixels. We're going to set our list items display in block, inline block, and we're going to set our anchor items. We're going to set the margins to 0. The padding is going to be set to 10. $15. Color settings. Blue. Text decoration. None. And finally, we're going to set the background to light yellow. So all of those have now been set. For this, we're going to save this file. We look at our first page again. We now have settings that we've set up through this as well. You can also import other CSS pages, other style sheets into your CSS. So we're going to open up this page. We'll stay back on the first page. We're going to open the favorite styles, go back to it. Let's look at this in, we can arrange these in tiles so that we can see each one of these. So I'll see my favorite styles. I'm going to close this one. I'll save all of my work. Open this file up. So I have my first page and then my favorite styles CSS. Now in my related files, you can see that I can click here and see the code here as well. So in this, I'm going to go for the body rule on this. Excuse me, on this one, on the CSS. And I'm going to do an add import. And I'm going to import base.scss. And I'm going to put that in the correct folder. I'm sorry, I wrote that in the wrong one. I meant to write that over here. Now nothing's changed. I need to save this file. Now you'll see that I have a change over in this file here. So we're going back to cascading. So now you see that we do have a big change that's happened on our page. So we can use CSS, we can type this in, we can type in our code hints and hit our tab key. That'll allow us to use quickly insert code or insert our HTML tags. So you will go through and finish chapter 4. Once you're finished, you will zip up your folder and submit the entire chapter 4 assignment to the Dropbox.